So, last time we left off with the line, maybe somebody could say what line and what word. Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor, Vahanora. Where is that on your page? Page 98, line what? Anybody?
Line 2.
Is it line 2? I take your word for it.
Great, the mighty, the Alpha.
Yeah, okay, so the God who is great, mighty, awesome, and we related those three attributes to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It parallels the previous phrase. God of Avraham, God of Yitzchak, God of Yaakov, great being kindness, mighty being exactitude, as we put it, which was the attribute of Yitzchak, and Nora, awesomeness, was the attribute of Yaakov. We related it to Tiferes, or beauty, glory, which essentially is the blend of these two, the balance between the absolute loving kindness and also the absolute exactingness or strictness. The blend between the two is the perfect medium in the middle, and that is described as awesome for reasons that got cut off of the recording, but just the last few minutes over there were that Nora, usually we relate the word Nora to the word Yirah, which means fear, and the attribute of fear or awe would seem to belong more to the second attribute, Gibor, might. So why is it here related in a third? So the last thing we said last week when we ended was there's two types of Yirah, that the Baalei Musar, the masters of ethical teachings, teach of two types of Yirah. There's two types of fear. There's what's called Yiras Ha'onesh, fear of punishment, that we serve Hashem out of fear of the consequence, the negative consequence of not serving Him. But there's also what's called Yiras HaRomimus, which means really it's the word Yira over there really translates more into awe, even though it's the same word in Hebrew. Awe of God's Romimus, of His highness, of His greatness. That when we come to realization of just how great God is, we come to be in complete awe of Him, and we serve Him out of that feeling of awe. And that would be the Nora. And that awareness of the greatness of God comes from understanding the balance between His kindness and His exactitude. That's the word that we'll use. Okay, strictness or exactitude in balance. Okay, then the next term is Kel Elyon. I'm going to repeat what I said last week because out of confusion, when I say the names of God, like here the Aleph Lamed name, I'm going to mispronounce them on purpose because out of the context of davening itself or reading a pasuk, we don't want to say God's actual name. So we disguise the name with a mispronunciation here. Instead of an Aleph, I'm going to say it like a kuf sound. Kel Elyon. Kel Elyon. Which means what? Highest or supreme? Highest, supreme God. Okay. Why do we need this over here? So just my thought on this is when you have a God that manifests in different ways, that we experience Hashem through different attributes, sometimes through kindness and sometimes through a stricter way of guiding the world. So you may tend to think that these forces are in conflict with one another, and certainly in ancient times and probably today in many places people believe that there are vying forces between one another. Even within Christianity, there's their idea of Satan. We also have Satan, but their idea of Satan is sort of a power in conflict with God, in opposition to God, whereas the Jewish idea is very much that even Satan, which literally means in Hebrew the one who obstructs, the obstruction, is doing so in the service of God, at God's command, right? So that these forces are not in conflict. Zoroastrianism, considered one of the great monotheistic religions of yore, they think maybe even predates Judaism. No one's quite sure when Zoroastrianism got started as a religion, but they believed in dualism. They were basically two powers, even though it was sort of considered monotheistic in that they believed in one God, but they also believed that there was another power in opposition to that God. So there was Ahura Mazda was the supreme god of Zoroastrianism, and then there was Ahriman was the one in opposition. Now the reason I bring it up is because the Gemara talks a lot about Zoroastrianism, and people don't realize that. The Gemara records a number of discussions between sages of the Talmud and Zoroastrian magi, and which are their philosopher, priest type people, and debates of philosophy between the two. And not only that, but the kings of Parthia, which was the empire under which the Jews of Babylonia lived, were Zoroastrians. And you'll note from history, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, I was talking to somebody, I think it was just a conversation I had with Mr. Altos Hailori, about the divine providence in history, is at the period when the Talmud was being compiled in Babylonia, the Babylonian Empire, which is really the Parthian Empire at that time, was very benevolent towards the Jews, and therefore the activity of the compiling of the Talmud could take place, whereas it couldn't take place underneath the Romans, the neighboring Roman Empire, which was at war with Parthia, these two empires, one in the west and one in the east, where the Romans were constantly quashing Torah study and Torah learning. So, on the other hand, the Parthians were very benevolent towards the Jews, and it was only after the Talmud was finished being fully edited that the Romans ended up defeating the Parthians. It was as though, and they weren't the most competent governors, that's for sure, and it was as though, Rabbi Miller writes this, that God was just propping up the Parthians just long enough that the Jewish Talmud should be finished, and then the Jewish people could endure whatever would happen after that, once we had the Talmud. So the Gemara records even that the kings and queens of Parthia would send sacrifices to the Jewish rabbis and ask the rabbis to direct their servants of how to bring the sacrifices properly to God, to Hashem, because the Zoroastrians considered Hashem, the God of the Jews, to be synonymous with their own Ahura Mazda. And even though we're not allowed to bring sacrifices outside the Beis HaMikdash, this is an area where non-Jews have an advantage over Jews. They are allowed to bring sacrifices in the absence of a temple, even nowadays. That means if nowadays a non-Jew wanted to bring a sacrifice to Hashem, animal sacrifice, they would be permitted to do it. We are absolutely forbidden to do it outside of the temple. They would be permitted to do it. They would just need to be instructed on the proper laws of doing it. So they went to the Talmudic sages and says, how do we bring this korban to God? And they instructed them, because what that tells you is that even the Talmudic sages considered Ahura Mazda in the Zoroastrian religion to be an acceptable form of worship of Hashem. And Rashi says as much openly when he said, whenever the Gemara talks about Ahura Mazda, I forgot exactly. I think Hormes is the term the Gemara uses for what's called in the scholarly world, the Ahura Mazda. Hormes. When the Gemara talks about Hormes, Rashi says this is Hakadosh Baruch Hu in their language, right? Even Rashi says Hormes, Ahura Mazda is synonymous with Hashem in the Zoroastrian faith, whereas Ahriman, who's called Hormin in the Gemara, Rashi says is a shade, he's a demon. So even their Satan, the Zoroastrian Satan, the way that Judaism views it is it's a demon in their religion, right? But it's not really a second deity. Even though in Zoroastrianism there's this, why am I bringing this up? Okay, because that's why I think these words are here. Kel Elyon, Most High God. This is what I think. I couldn't find really a commentary that addressed it. But we just said, God who is great, mighty, awesome. He has these extreme attributes of kindness on the one hand and strictness on the other hand. And we look at Hashem as being blending the two in perfection because he is Kel Elyon. He is the Most High God. That is, he is the power that is over all powers in the world as we see them. No matter how we see Hashem's divine providence manifest, whether it's in the form of kindness, or what we perceive as kindness, or what we perceive as more strict, harsh type of providence, we don't see these forces as being in conflict. We don't see them as coming from two separate sources. They all originate from one God who is above and in control of all of them. That's what I think this phrase means. Kel Elyon. Okay. Moving on. Gomel chasodim tovim means does kind things. Is that what it means? Okay, so Gomel, well, I don't know what your English translation says over there. What does it say in the article?
Beneficial kindness.
Okay, so I was going to say for Gomel bestows. I was going to use the same word. Chasadim, kindnesses, right? But chasadim tovim, which you said beneficial kindnesses. Tovim literally means good. He bestows good kindnesses. Now, if I took away the word tovim and I just said Gomel chasodim, he bestows kindnesses, and that's usually how we say it, right? The world stands on three pillars: on Torah, on avodas, the divine service, and gemilos chasadim, bestowing kindnesses. It doesn't say gemilos chasadim tovim, right? So what is chasadim tovim? What is this word tovim doing as a modifier over here?
Maybe the same as in the Mevorchim HaChodesh.
Okay.
When it says that Hashem does everything for the good.
Where does it say that?
Oh boy.
I know, sorry. I'm putting you on the spot.
That's okay, I'm going to find Mevorchim and then I'm going to tell you.
Birkas HaChodesh. We looked at it last week. Anybody remember the page offhand? I don't have the same. 450. 450.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Misha alos libenu l'tova.
Oh, he should answer the requests of our heart for good. Good, latova. And we find the word latova in a lot of places, right? We have the famous story in the Gemara of Nachum Ish Gamzu. Familiar with the story of Nachum Ish Gamzu? Some of you are. That he said anything, Gemara says, anything that happened to him, he would say, Gamzu Latova. Now I want to share something that this is a random trivial factoid that I happen to know and most people don't know, so I figure I'll share it because if you don't hear it from me, and I can hear it from anyone else. Very famously, the Gemara is quoted as saying, he was called Nachum Ish Gamzu because he would always say Gamzu Latova, right? This too is for the good. Now, I have come across in my research of Nachum Ish Gamzu, because I like to research the personalities of the Talmud, that there are variants of the Gemara that don't say this. They don't say that's the reason he was called Nachum Ish Gamzu. In fact, it may seem that the older, more authentic text of the Gemara is missing that, and it was added in later. Why do I say that? Because if you look at some old Mefarshim, some old commentaries on the Gemara who predate Rashi, the commentary is the one that informs us why he was called Nachum Ish Gamzu, as though it wasn't in the text. You see, it's in the commentary. Oh, why was he called Nachum Ish Gamzu? Because he used to say Gamzu Latova. Why do I need a commentary to tell me that it's in the text? You see, this commentary did not have that in the text, and he was adding it in, and it's my feeling, based on that later editors just added it to the text. I'm not arguing with the fact, but the question is whether it's there. Why? Because there are other opinions that his name was Nachum Ish Gimzo, actually, with no vowels in the Gemara. So, how do you know? Because there are other opinions that his name was Nachum Ish Gimzo, because Gimzo is the name of a city in the Tanakh, and he was from this city. It was Ish Gimzo, the man of Gimzo, like Antigonus Ish Socho. Antigonus, the man of Socho, because he was from a place called Socho. So, and that's not Soho in Greenwich Village, but so here the question is he? So it's sort of an argument between the commentators. Is he Ish Gimzo or is he Ish Gamzu? And how do you have such an argument if the Gemara says openly why he was called Gamzu, right? There are those who say it was a play. Yes, he was both. He was Ish Gimzo, but they nicknamed him Gamzu because he said Gamzu Latova. And these two opinions don't need to be in conflict. But that's just an interesting tidbit about Nachum Ish Gamzu. But Nachum Ish Gamzu, one of the opinions, or our current contemporary text of the Gemara says that he was called Nachum Ish Gamzu, man of Gamzu, because he always said Gamzu Latova. No matter what happened, this too is for the good. His student, Rabbi Akiva, who studied under Nachum Ish Gamzu for how many years? 22 years. Studied underneath Nachum Ish Gamzu. Also, famous story about Rabbi Akiva, that he was traveling. It was worth it to tell the story. He was traveling and he had a donkey. That was his faithful steed, right? He had a chicken, which was going to be his meal, and he had a candle or a torch. He had some kind of flame to light his way. And he came to a town and he asked for lodging, and everyone turned him down. So here he was, he had nowhere to stay, and he was going to have to sleep in the field. So he says, Kol my da'avid rachmana, everything which God does, Rahmana means the merciful one, God. It's the same thing in Arabic, Rahman. They call God Rahman in Arabic. Well, everything that the merciful one does, litav avid, he does litav for good. Latova, this is Aramaic for latova is litav. And so what happens, he's sleeping there, and so in the middle of the night, a lion comes and kills his donkey. And then he says, everything God does is for good. And then I think a weasel comes and eats his chicken. He says, everything God does is for good. And then a wind comes and blows out his light. He says, everything God does is for good. The next morning he comes into town and everybody's dead. And he looks around, he finds somebody, and he says, what happened over here? And they say, there was a band of marauders that came in the middle of the night, and they killed everybody. And so Rabbi Akiva says, wow, if I had my animals making noise, they would have discovered me. If I had my light, shining, they would have discovered me, and I also could have been a casualty. So indeed, all the things that happened to me that appeared to be unfortunate when they happened were actually litav. They were for good. So I think you're right on target. It says Gomel Chasadim Tovim, and you related it to in Berkas HaChodesh that Hashem answers all the requests of our heart litova, for the good. So now that with that introduction, now you can tell me, you should all be equipped to tell me, what does it mean that Hashem is Gomel Chasadim Tovim, as opposed to just He renders kindnesses, but here He renders good kindnesses. So your translation cheated a little bit. It said the beneficial kindnesses. So what's the difference between a kindness and a beneficial kindness?
It's directly related to you, in the essence that what he does for you, or the kindness he does for you, is not going to be the same that he's doing over there for Sandy. That he's kind of like individualizing everything.
I didn't think of that. That's very interesting, because if it just said he bestows kindnesses, it could be generic.
Correct.
But Chasadim Tovim means kindness that is good for each individual, because not everything's going to be good for everyone.
Correct.
So therefore, in order to be good kindnesses, it has to be individualized. That's very nice. I like that. I was thinking along a little bit different lines, but thank you. Yeah.
You also said earlier that the Yetzer Hara also works for Hashem, right?
Right.
So in that context, it's all kind.
Uh-huh.
So maybe a beneficial kindness that will feel good in this lifetime now, versus if everything is good and everything is kind, then you need to say beneficial kindness.
So really there's two. You want to say that everything is, you want to say everything's a kindness, but not everything feels like a kindness. So another interesting thing, I wasn't thinking along those lines, but in other words, Chasadim Tovim, it feels good. So now that you say that, it's funny because I used to ask this question, and I don't know if it was a good question, I don't know if it was a good answer, but I said it when I was in college, so we're going back, almost 20 years to something I said then. And I haven't repeated since then, so I don't know how it's going to sound. But I used to say, on Rosh Hashanah, we say you should have Shana Tova U'Misuka. You should have a good and sweet year. So I said, what's wrong with a good year? Or what's wrong with a sweet year? Why both? Why good and sweet? So I answered like this: good could be good, but it doesn't feel sweet. I don't experience it as good, even if it's really beneficial for me, like the bitter pill, the bitter medicine, or whatever it is, the harsh treatment that it's, it's going to heal me, but it's painful going in, right? So tova should be good. Umasuka should also be sweet. On the other hand, there are things that are sweet, but they're not good, right? Sugar is a great example of things that are sweet, but are not good. So you need both. You need shana tova. We want both. We want things that are tova and umasuka. So that's chasadim tovim. It's a chesed, but it's also tov. It's a kindness, but we also experience it as a kindness. Okay, good. Any other ideas on this? And then, by the way, tefillah, you see we have multiple meanings, and you shouldn't, I don't think Hashem expects anyone, you shouldn't necessarily stand there and say a word and then think through like 10 meanings in your head when you're davening. But it means, if any of the things that we're saying, and I think these words break out into multiple meanings, as we're demonstrating now, if any of these things that we're saying, that's why I gave you note paper, you feel a particular connectivity with, so maybe that's something to focus on. Another point I want to say, because I made this point to a few people, is we move relatively slowly in the class, and it wasn't necessarily my intent in the beginning to go at any particular pace other than to respond to the group, and it ended up that we were going a few words each week, and I was like, maybe we should cover more ground. But then I shared this thought with a few people. If the class was like an information dump, I was like, okay, here's what this means. Okay, here's what this means. Okay, let's go. One paragraph, another paragraph. Knock them out of the park, so to speak. How much of that could you maintain, and how much of that could you put into practice? But if I say, this week I'm going to daven, how many Shemoneh Esreh am I going to daven? If I daven once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day, I could daven, 10, 20 Shemoneh Esreh this week, right? And in all those tries, I could focus on this phrase, on that phrase, like each time. I want to also say another word about it, which is this. This is something from Nefesh HaChaim I want to share. This is very important about tefillah. The Nefesh HaChaim was written by Rabbi Chaim of Volozhin, who was the principal disciple of the Vilna Gaon, who lived about, what year are we holding it? 250 years ago, let's say. So, and the Chaim of Volozhin operated predominantly in the 19th century. So he wrote this book, Nefesh HaChaim. I think it's a very fundamental work on Jewish philosophy. But from what I understand of the historical context, this was right at the pinnacle of the burgeoning Hasidic movement. And I hope nothing I say offends anybody here tonight. But there were a lot of controversial ideas that came with this new movement of Hasidism, particularly ideas about God, and so many of what you might call the establishment rabbis were in opposition to the philosophies of Hasidism, and not just the philosophies, the practices. The practices were very bizarre, and you wouldn't recognize today what was called Hasidism then. It was almost unrecognizable as normative Judaism, right? And that was part of the appeal. It was radically different, People used to do somersaults in Shemoneh Esreh, and I'm not even exaggerating, okay? And this is one of the things they write about in the ban. There was a famous ban against Hasidism that was, if you look at what is it, the Declaration of Independence, you have John Hancock's signature is like really big, so that's why your signature is known as a John Hancock. So the Vilna Gaon was asked to put his signature on the ban against the Hasidic movement. He signed it twice. He put his name on 2 times. Okay, and one of the things that they talk about in the ban is how with these wild kind of rituals and davening, jumping and clapping and rolling around the room. They would quote this Gemara that I quoted to you in another class, that Rabbi Akiva would start his Shemoneh Esreh on one side of the room, and he'd end up on another side of the room. So they also try to do that. Questions. How? Okay, we're not going to go into it. But let's just say it wasn't normative. Okay, so Rabbi Chaim of Volozhin, a lot of what he writes in the book is in response to what he's seeing, trends that he's seeing taking off in the Jewish community that were very alarming. And he said it was all done in the name of what's called devekus. Devekus in Hebrew literally means like close connection with Hashem. Attachment to Hashem. Devek in Hebrew is glue, right? Attachment to Hashem. And that's this, that if you can imagine, that's this feeling of like, Hashem, I feel so close to you right now. I'm so uplifted, I'm so inspired. And it's a wonderful thing. And it's great. He says the problem is when you put Dvikus as your number one value and you throw out everything that, all the rules and that the Torah gave us and that comes down to us in halacha in the name of Dvikus, because the popular philosophy that he said was going around at the time, and I hear it from people today, I hear it from people today. I was at someone's Shabbos table and he was saying over something from a very prominent, well-respected Hasidic American rabbi that I bristled, to be quite frank, because the Nefesh HaChaim speaks directly against this sort of thing. That is, Dvikus is wonderful, it's amazing, but it cannot be at the expense of the guidelines of halacha. We don't dispense, because it feels so I feel so spiritual, I feel so connected, and therefore I have an excuse to throw out all the other stuff. You say, no, you have to keep halacha, and the response is, but it's dry for me, I don't feel, so I can't respond to all that right now, but I want to say something, I'm building up to something that I think is very important. So he says, it's one of the problems with this, besides the obvious problem, one of the problem is that it degrades, he says, the Pashuter Yid, he doesn't say Pashuter Yid, but I'm paraphrasing, the plain Jew, that plain Jew who doesn't feel Dveikus, but he goes through his day and he does what the Torah obligates him to do. He gets up in the morning and he davens and he keeps the halacha, and it's dry, but he does it, and he does it with commitment and with consistency, and he's not the most spiritually uplifted guy, but he stays on the straight and narrow path. He says what the Chassidim, he doesn't say Chassidim, he never says Chassidim, but it's understood. He says what these folks do is they say that's worthless. If you don't feel Dveikus, what you're doing is like less than nothing. Because the important thing is attachment to Hashem. And he says that's such a terrible thing to say and a terrible thing to believe, because a Jew who just keeps his bare obligations, as difficult as it might be, as rigorous as it might be, and he does so on a low, simple level without understanding any high Kabbalistic things, he says that's a very holy person, and that's a very holy thing that he's doing. And how dare anyone degrade such a thing? So I was hearing from someone, he said the name of someone, I'm not going to say who, that I don't accept that this person ever said such a thing. That a person who serves Hashem without Dveikus is like a guy who, he wants to go to the opera, but he doesn't get around to buying a ticket. So the show is starting and he doesn't have a ticket. So what does he do? He stands outside the theater and he waits for somebody to come out. And he says, can I have your ticket stub? And the guy says, sure, I don't need it anymore. He gives him the ticket stub. And then the guy goes home to his hometown where he came from. And he said, yeah, I went on a trip to New York. They said, did you go to the opera? Did I say opera? What did I say? Opera, Broadway, whatever it was. Did you go to the opera? And he says, yeah, I went to the opera. Here's my ticket stub. And he goes and shows everybody the ticket stub. So, did he go to the opera? No, he never went to the opera. Does he have the ticket stub that presents as though he went to the opera? He does. So he says, that's the fellow who serves Hashem without Dveikus. He's got the ticket stub, but he never really went to the opera. But a Jew who serves Hashem with Dveikus, he's at the opera, right? I really bristled when I heard this, I have to tell you. And I don't accept that the person it was said in the name of ever said such a thing. But that's exactly what the Nefesh HaChaim says is one of the crimes of this movement, and should never be said. So what's the Dveikus and how do we get it? He says, here's how you do it. You do what you're supposed to do. You learn Torah because you're obligated to do so. You daven because you're obligated to do so. He says, and in the course of walking the path, he says, there will be moments of connection. He says, you'll get there. You'll find that connection in there. But the only real, genuine connection is on this road. And most of us, he said, are not going to experience it most of the time. But if you keep on this path, there will be those moments, and that is true Dveikus. There will be, not every davening is going to be inspired, but if you keep it up, you will have it, and that's your shining moment. You'll get there, but that's genuine Dveikus. But the counterfeit Dveikus of I'm going to sort of forge my own way and make my own religion because it feels spiritual to me, he says, is completely misguided. So he says this is the meaning of the very famous adage that we all hear. That we say this. We say I can't keep track of the time because my phone is on camera mode. I want to be mindful of the time.
8:25.
He says this is the meaning of the adage. We say mitoch shelo lishma ba lishma, which is usually translated as we begin doing something not for the right reasons, lo lishma, not for its sake, the sake of the act itself. We do it for some external motive, and mitoch that, through that, ba lishma, we come ultimately to do it for its sake. So, but you have to begin the way in. You start with an ulterior motive that's sort of self-serving, but ultimately you do it for the right reason. He says the meaning of that really is most of the time we're going to do things. We're not going to necessarily feel that uplifting spiritual connection. But and that's called shelo lishma. We're doing it sort of not out of dveikus, but we're doing it out of obligation. This is the way he says it. But mitoch that, if you, through doing that process, eventually ba lishma, you will reach dveikus sometimes. But now some of you might think this is a big downer, but I took a lot of encouragement from, because my feeling is for most of us normal folks, and I'll speak for myself, how often do we, just feel inspired? How often do we just feel lifted up off our feet by mitzvahs and by Torah? Sometimes, but not all the time. So does that mean that we should abandon the pursuit unless that's going to be the experience, that's going to be the result? I think most of us would lose out a lot. I'll speak for myself. It's, it isn't always, head in the clouds. So he says that's okay. That's exactly what the sages meant when they said, mitoch shelo lishma ba lishma. You're not different than any person who's ever lived. This is the way we achieve that spiritual connection, is you have to, rev the engine, and eventually you'll be able to just sort of take off. But you gotta do what you gotta do. And you'll have, if you do that, you'll have these moments. Why did I bring that up? I don't even remember. How did I get started on that?
To go into the nefesh HaChaim.
No, but this was the point I wanted to bring up.
There was the side piece to that, and then you were dealing with.
There was a reason that I went into
Gomel
that.
Chasadim Tovim.
Gomel Chasadim Tovim.
And you never really gave the definition.
Well, I don't have to give the definition.
Oh, no, I thought
we
you
heard
had.
two very nice definitions.
No, I thought you were.
I'm not sure why I went on this tangent. I know why. This is why. Because I said we have all these meanings that are coming out from you guys. What do you think it means? We heard a couple of very beautiful things. Everything in the tefillah. So I was talking about how we do like a few words at a time. So this is where I was going. Not every tefillah has to be like you're flying in the clouds from beginning to end. But maybe within the tefillah there can be a few words that you focus on where you can conjure up some of these ideas that we spoke about and make at least that part of the tefillah, that moment, inspiring. That's where I've gone into the nefesh HaChaim. And my point is that's very valuable. That's very valuable. So if you take away from each week, this week, when I focus on this line of tefillah, I can use one of the things that I remember from class to imbue that part of my tefillah with the special meaning. That's very valuable. So the fact that each week, we're only getting a few words, I think there's a great value to that. So I did want to share that as we go on, and that's because two people shared some very nice things about this, that you can really imbue the tefillah with your own kind of meanings. And if anything, maybe that's what we're practicing doing right now. a lot of what I'm going to say to you is things that I myself, sort of meditated on until I came up with something that was meaningful to me. So I'm sharing that with you. Okay, what I thought.
Right for a second.
Yeah.
So I just, just knowing what's coming forward a bit here, it's like I sort of feel like this part is really setting us in the pace for what we're going to go through here next in the Shemoneh Esreh. And so it's like if we don't sort of believe at this point, or if we, then the rest of it doesn't have so much meaning. We have to have this part to give us the entrance into the thing. And also, granted, not every prayer may be uplifting, but this prayer here, this one that we're doing here, I mean, number one, we say it silently to ourselves. And then we go back, and if we have a minion, we go back and repeat it again. And technically, you're supposed to listen to it. I know people just talk all the way through the repetition, but really you're supposed to listen to it again, just like you were saying it yourself silently in case you really didn't get the same inspiration and say to it yourself silently. So, but, again, the way I look at it here, this is kind of, in a way, almost like the Ten Commandments. I mean, if you don't believe that this is the God, and this is the God of goodness and kindness, then when we go, I feel like it's all kind of it's like a life treatment all the way through. We believe here, and if we believe here, then we can start to humble ourselves, and each one has a little step that it may take us a year to get to, but we're going to get to it eventually.
Right, but that's right. That's right. I don't think I could say anything more. You said that so beautifully. But yeah, maybe imbuing the tefillah with davening is a lifelong pursuit, and why not? So each week there'll be something.
I mean, it seems like even if you got stuff going on in your head, it seems like sometimes you're going through and all of a sudden comes to me, But something totally doesn't,
Right. It pays just to spend a few minutes and think about it.
But yeah, I guess there has to be. You're right. If it's just reading it every day, read it for 100 years every day, it's great. And Hashem says, okay, great, you read for 100 years, but I was hoping you'd get a little bit more out of it.
Right. We're not going to belittle the value of, like I said, doing things just out of obligation, but we could do better, right? So, very good. Okay, so my thought on Gemel Chasadim Tovim, I can't say it's so original, I did read it, was that it's really similar to what Debbie said, but not all kindnesses are necessarily good, right? Because the Torah even uses the word chesed to refer to something, and chesed uses the word chesed as a synonym for shame. And by the way, this goes back to a previous class, where we talked about the why we have to do actions in order to earn the benefits of the world to come, etc., and the divine essence of goodness that's coming into the world. That was 2 weeks ago. Is we said that we have to sort of be godlike, and I'm not going to rehash that class, but the word that's used in the literature for the feeling of getting a handout, like you come before God and you haven't earned it. And so God says, listen, I'm all beneficent, so I'm going to give it to you anyway, right? But it's called Nahama de Kisufa. Nahama de Kisufa means the bread of shame. It's the poor man who gets his bread through a handout. He feels ashamed that he has to get his bread that way. Yeah, he has bread. He has a meal. Isn't that great? But there's a certain shame that comes with it. So, this is very deep when you think about the experience of the next world and is God a punishing God? No, it's not really. It's just, and Yechezkel, I was just reading this week in Yechezkel where he says, I'm going to be so good to you in the end of days when you didn't return that goodness to me over the course of history. God says, I'm going to shower you with so much goodness you're going to be ashamed, right? That's how God sort of describes his own punishment. The punishment is it's going to be so good you're going to be ashamed that you didn't really do anything to deserve it, right? That's where it's open. It says in Yechezkel. So that's really the experience of the next world, the so-called suffering of the next world. It's not like you get dropped into a pit of hellfire, right? It's like you come into the goodness unearned, and it's described as getting nama because of the bread of shame, right? So chesed in the Torah is a synonym also for shame, because when you get something out of pure kindness and not out of deserving it, there's a feeling of shame. Where does it come up? Shame, when it talks about incest, or a relationship between a brother and sister, an intimate union between a brother and sister, which is forbidden, the Torah forbids it, and it says chesed hu, it's a chesed. It's a chesed, it's a kindness, it's a shame, it's something very lowly, but it's described in terms of chesed because, whatever it is, but sometimes giving too much is bad, right? So here, there was a giving that was very inappropriate, sort of a giving. So too much giving is bad. So chasadim tovim, Hashem gives what's good to give, but what's not good to give, He doesn't give. Okay, don't want to say more about that because we spent too much time on it. Okay, V'konei hakol, how much time do I have?
I have 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay. V'konei hakol. Translate. V'konei hakol. You have an English, so you can use it. Creates everything, okay? V'konei hakol, and creates everything. What's the Hebrew word for create? Borei. Should be borei hakol. What does konei mean in Hebrew? To acquire. So it really means acquires everything, but we translate as creates everything, because here we mean acquire as a synonym for create. Great. Why did I use the word for acquire as a synonym for create instead of just saying create? So you're going to say John Locke, because John Locke says that you acquire by putting your labor into something, by creating it, it makes it yours, right, John Locke? Everybody know John Locke. So I don't know if Locke studied the Shemoneh Esreh when he came up with that. The V'konei hakol, that acquisition and creating are synonymous because what you create is yours. That's true, and you see it right here in the Shemoneh Esreh. But it still didn't need to use this word. So why does it say v'konei hakol? Okay. Since we're running out of time, I'm going to tell you what I heard. What I heard on this is that yes, konei means create. However, this is what Rabbi Perlman in Or Sameach told us. He said that borei, creating, he says there are different ways of creating. He said it like this. This is like, you can imagine like a mad scientist in his laboratory, and he throws some chemicals together, and poof, there's a big puff of smoke, and out comes, swamp monster. I don't know, whatever. A new compound. That's how they created saran wrap, right? Saran wrap was an accident. The guy who created saran wrap was trying to do something else, and he noticed the stuff was sticky and stretchy, and hey, and now he's a billionaire, right? So, I think Silly Putty was also an accident. All these things that were created by accident. Reese's peanut butter. One guy with the peanut butter, one guy with the chocolate, right? Good thing for Count Dracula, so he could eat the peanut butter first. But anyway, I also watched commercials. But anyway, so he says, but when we look at creation and we look at ourselves as creations of Hashem, we're not meant to think I'm here by accident, right? V'konei hakol, He created everything, but how did He create it? Konei means acquiring. When a person acquires something, what that means is you go into the store, you look at what's there, you choose something, and the exchange is meaningful because this is something that I want. I want to have it, right? So when Hashem creates the world, He created it full of things that He wanted to be there. So everything that's in this world is very purposeful. So konei hakol is like creates with purpose. Okay, that was. I think that's enough for now. And the konei hakol, I think that was meaningful. I heard from Rabbi Mordechai Perlman, so if you like it, you can dig that. Creates purposefully. Now, okay, no, leave that. Okay, fine. Next, let's move on. So we could say we did 7 words. We'll do even more. Let's do the next 7 words. So we'll have, I'm not good at math, 12 words. Okay. And we'll save the mantra for next time, maybe? Maybe we'll get to the end. Let's see how quick we can go. V'zocher chasdei avos. V'zocher chasdei avos means? And he remembers the kindnesses of the fathers. Okay. What for? Look at the next words. Umevi goel livnei v'neihem. And brings. What's that? A redeemer. Okay, good. Brings a redeemer. To his children's children. Who were his children's children? B'neihem, their children's children. He remembers the kindnesses of the fathers, and he brings a redeemer to their children's children. Who are the children's children? We are the children's children. And the verbs are in the present tense over here. Mevi goel, not Yavi goel will bring a redeemer. Mevi goel, he is bringing a redeemer to his children's children. So it's very personal over here. That's us. And he's bringing it on the backs of what? V'zocher chastei avos. He remembers the kindnesses of the fathers. So based on the kindnesses of the fathers, he's bringing the redeemer to the children's children. And this is a present tense action that's happening. Which means, even if we don't see it in our generation, chas v'shalom, but everything that's happening is bringing us closer and closer. It's a process that's continuing in our days. And it could be, this is talking about national redemption. It could be talking about personal redemption in our own lives. But it's going on right now. And it's in the merit of the forefathers. So what does that mean? That means we don't have our own merits. Maybe we do have our own merits. But even if we don't have our own merits, don't worry. It's coming. It's coming in the merit because of our forefathers. So we have a guarantee. Let's go further. If you have questions, stop me. Lema'an shemo means for the sake of his name. Okay. So I don't get it. Wait, did I run out of time? Are we at 45? No. Well, we'll see if we can get to the end. Maybe, maybe not. Lema'an shemo, for the sake of his name. Now I'm confused. Because you told me that you're bringing the Redeemer because of the forefathers. But now you're telling me you bring it for the sake of his name, meaning Hashem is bringing for the sake of his name. We need for the sake of his name, to make that easy, because God promised it. And if he wouldn't keep his promise, so he would look like a liar. He promised it. So he's got to come through for the sake of his name. Well, then what do I need the forefathers for? And if I have the forefathers, what do I need the sake of his name? With me? So, quick, from Rabbi Perlman, he says these are different contingencies. Because the kindnesses of the fathers will only go so far. Right? There is such a thing of kalu zechus avos, that the merits of the fathers, the zechus avos, the merits of the fathers, which do protect us, there is such a thing, and hopefully we haven't gotten there, of they ran out. I mean, there's only so much in the bank. So if we keep withdrawing, I'm going to run out. So if we run out, is there no hope for us? No, don't worry, says Hashem. Even if you run out with the kindnesses of the fathers, it's guaranteed. But even without the kindnesses of the fathers, let's say you have your own merits. Great. But even if you don't have your own merits, you still have in the bank, you have the kindnesses of the fathers. What if we run out of kindnesses of the fathers? What if we overdraw the bank account? Don't worry. He says, for the sake of my name, I have to keep my promise no matter what. But wait a minute, says Rabbi Perlman. He says, but if you're not doing it out of kindness, and you're doing it for the sake of your name, then it's going to be harsh, right? It's going to be harsh because, all right, guys, I have to do it. It's my obligation. I'm not doing it because of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, whom I love. I'm not doing it because of your own merits. And all right, I have to do it for the sake of my name. Just sort of like gather yourself. Okay, here I come. Right? Is it like that? No, because what's the next word? Be'ahava, with love. Even if it's all said and done, and we don't have our own merits, and we don't have our Father's merits, and Hashem has to do it for the sake of his name, he's still going to do it with love. The redemption is coming. Hashem should come very soon, and it's going to come with love, and here we'll pause. Have a good week.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
So doesn't it look like it's almost passive when you say that who recalls the kindness of the patriarchs and bring it? Wouldn't it be better to interpret it that it's more active? You're using the patriarchs to help you make the movement, and when you've exceeded them, or when you've not, when they're done giving it to you and run out, when you need more, that's when Hashem steps in. He's letting you build a foundation to begin with, which is what the patriarchs should have done. We're basing them on our foundation.
So you're saying that it's never truly that we're sort of finished, but it's just It's always us together with. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
So it's us together with the fathers, and if it's not us together with the fathers, it's us
Then
together with Hashem.
Right. So more of an action, you doing something to be redeemed, as opposed to, I'm just hanging out here till you guys get around to it, type attitude.
Okay.
You know, it.
Yes. So, by the way, we're going to see in the next line, when we get to Melech Ozer, Umoshia, Umagin. He's the king with Ozer, he helps, Umashia, and he saves, Umagin, and he protects. We're going to talk about what's the difference between these three things. Ozer helping, Moshia saving, and Magin protecting. And I think that'll touch on what you've said now.
Right.
Okay? Okay, Mincha, downstairs.